The Blood Countess, Elizabeth Bathory. Tonight's story bleeds from the edges of empire, where power, privilege, and paranoia met one woman who mistook cruelty for control. Elizabeth Bathory was brutal and batshit. She turned cruelty into a lifestyle and torture in a theater. And still, not the worst Elizabeth in history. Welcome back to One Up the Annals, where shame becomes legend, history never pulls out on time, and I'm your host, Rab Greason, the historian of hemoglobin horrors, part-time donor to the Church of Bad Decisions, and tonight, your guide through one of Europe's darkest equations. How much power can buy before it eats itself? If you're new here, you can find content on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. And if you'd like to keep this chaos caffeinated, there's a donation link in the description. Throw a coin, a coffee, or your eternal soul to the scrolls. It all spends the same in the afterlife. Now, fair warning, this one isn't gentle. It's war, medicine, torture, and myth braided together. And my pronunciation of Čachtice Castle will offend everyone east of Vienna. But we tell these stories for truth, not for phonetic accuracy. The second worst Elizabeth in history, the Blood Countess. Let's go. Chapter 1, The World That Built Her. Elizabeth Bathory was born in 1560 to one of the most powerful families in Hungary. The Bathorys of Transylvania, a dynasty of princes, soldiers, and sociopaths. They ruled between empires, the Christian West and the Ottoman East. A borderland where survival meant cruelty wasn't evil, it was efficient. War back then wasn't the clean clash of knights on postcards, it was hands and fire. Villages burned to light the road home. Surgeons worked in armor. A successful amputation meant you bled out slower than the other guy. Medicine was wine, prayer, and hope that maggots found the dead flesh before the infection did. That was the world Elizabeth grew up in. A world where pain was ordinary and mercy was optional. She was brilliant, fluent in 4 languages, skilled in finance, capable of running estates the size of small nations. At 15, she married Count Ferenc Nadasdy, a warrior so brutal the Turks nicknamed him the Black Bey, black meaning fearsome, and Bey meaning high-ranking. While he fought for Christendom, she ruled the land, and when he died in 1604, she ruled alone. Chapter 2, The House of Girls. At Čachtice Castle, she began what she called instruction. Peasant girls were brought in to serve. Minor noble daughters arrived to be polished. Discipline was expected. What came next was something else. Witnesses later described a ritual of correction that became a laboratory of suffering. Iron tongs pulled flesh until it tore. Heated pincers branded the skin with her crest. Nails were driven under fingernails. Girls were beaten until the room echoed like a forge. She forced them into freezing water and out into the snow. A punishment so common it earned a name, the cold bath. Some were cut, others bitten. One servant claimed the Countess enjoyed using scissors between the fingers to teach silence. It wasn't random violence, it was organized. She had servants hold the victims, others clean the blood, and someone, perhaps herself, kept notes, names, chores, and marks beside them. No ledger was ever found, but under oath, one maid swore she had seen it. 650 names written in the Countess's own hand. Whether it existed or not, that number became her legend. In an age that was dissecting saints for science, Elizabeth Bathory learned her anatomy hands-on. Chapter 3, The Investigation. For almost 20 years, nobody cared. The poor had no voices, and nobles didn't police their own. Then, daughters of the gentry started disappearing. Whispers reached the church, then the throne. In 1610, Count Georgi Thurzo, her cousin, and the king's palatine, arrived at Čachtice with soldiers. When they opened the gates, they found 2 dead girls in the main hall, another dying by the fire, and others buried in the courtyard. The walls were stained, the instruments still warm. Bathory was arrested that night along with 4 servants: Lona, Dorothea, Janos, and Catalin. What followed was less a trial than an exorcism conducted by bureaucracy. 3 of the servants confessed under torture. They described her methods in excruciating detail, and every detail matched the corpses found. They said she gave the orders, sometimes joined in, sometimes simply watched and took notes. Lona claimed she saw the Countess stab victims with needles. Dorothea said Elizabeth beat girls with heavy cudgels until bones split. Janos, the manservant, admitted to disposing of bodies but insisted the lady's hands were never clean. Were they telling the truth or buying a faster death? We can't know. Their confessions came between screams and ended at the stake. Elizabeth was never tried. Her rank made trial inconvenient. Instead, King Matthias and Count Thurzo arranged something quieter. Chapter 4: The Price of Justice. King Matthias owed the Bathory estate a vast debt, a debt so large it could fund a war. If Elizabeth were executed, her property would revert to the crown. If she were confined, her family kept it. So the law found a middle ground. They walled her up alive inside her castle and called it mercy. They didn't burn her for her sins, they buried her for her assets. For 4 years she lived inside that room. No trial, no visitors, only a slit in the wall for food. She wrote letters counting the days until no one counted her anymore. In 1614, guards opened the cell and found her still beside the bed, hands folded as if waiting for a confession that never came. Chapter 5: The Legend. A century later, a Jesuit historian wrote the story. He added the detail that would outlive all the facts: that she bathed in the blood of virgins to stay young. It never appeared in the court records. It wasn't in any witness statement. It was theater. A way for the 18th century to turn a noblewoman's sadism into something prettier. Vanity. It made her easier to condemn. After all, cruelty for curiosity is human. Cruelty for beauty is fashion. The myth stuck. It fused her with vampire lore, turned her into Countess Dracula, and let the world believe she was punished for witchcraft, not wealth. When history can't punish you, it invents you. Chapter 6: The Ledger closes. Elizabeth Bathory was real. Her victims were real. The ledger, the blood, the devices, part truth, part echo. But behind every myth, there's a system that made it possible. A world that decided who counted and who didn't. She was a monster shaped by her century, one that confused authority for morality and cruelty for curiosity. Because monsters don't just hide under the bed. They hide behind titles, debts, and polite society. Every ledger ends eventually, but the ink never really dries. I've been your host, Rab Greason, and this is One Up the Annals, where shame becomes legend and rumor never dies. I came for the facts, you stayed for the filth, and now it's in the annals. Good night.